Before we dive in, tell me, what would you do if your neighbor called 911 on you for mowing your own lawn? Yeah, that actually happened to me. And trust me, by the time she realized who I really was, it was far too late. So hit that subscribe button, drop a comment if you've ever had a Karen in your neighborhood, and let's get into the story. It all started on a Sunday morning. The kind of morning that makes you forget the world even has problems. I was out on my ranch, 5 acres of peace, pine trees, and the soft hum of crickets fading into daylight. The smell of fresh-cut grass mixed with cedar from the barn. My dog, Ranger, trotted beside me, tail wagging like a metronome of calm. After 20 years in the corporate world, I'd finally earned my escape. Retirement at 45, a small ranch outside the city, and total silence. Or so I thought. That's when I saw her. A pristine white SUV, tires crunching on my gravel driveway. A woman stepped out, blonde bob haircut, oversized sunglasses, clutching a clipboard like it was a holy relic. Her lips were pursed so tightly, it looked like she'd swallowed a lemon and blamed me for it. "Excuse me," she shouted, striding toward me. "Do you live here?" I wiped my hands on my jeans, already guessing where this was going. "Pretty sure I do, ma'am. You're standing on my property." She squinted at the barn behind me, then back at the open pasture. This doesn't comply with HOA guidelines. We don't allow, livestock or heavy machinery within sight of the main road." I couldn't help but laugh. "You must be lost. This is Redstone Ranch, not Maple Creek subdivision." Her jaw dropped slightly as if I'd just spoken another language. "No, sir. You're mistaken. The Maple Creek HOA extends up to this property line. And I'm the vice president." There it was. Vice president of the HOA. The tone, the entitlement, the clipboard, it all made sense. I folded my arms. "Lady, I built this place before Maple Creek even existed. The HOA line ends half a mile south. This is county land." She sniffed, unimpressed. "We'll see about that. I'm reporting this to the board. You can't just store industrial equipment in plain view of residents." I pointed to my John Deere parked near the barn. "That's a tractor, not a tank." But she was already snapping photos with her phone like she was gathering evidence for a murder case. Ranger barked once, sensing my annoyance. "Control your animal," she hissed. "Aggressive pets are not allowed." I took a slow breath. "Ma'am, I don't know what fantasy rulebook you're reading from, but I don't answer to your HOA." She spun on her heel, marched back to her SUV, and drove off in a cloud of self-righteous dust. I figured that was the end of it. I'd dealt with Karens before. Keyboard warriors, clipboard commandos, the kind who think community guidelines apply to everyone except them. I shrugged it off and went back to mowing. That evening, though, I found a notice taped to my gate. HOA violation warning, unauthorized structure, noise disturbance, animal control notice. I almost choked laughing. It had my name on it, spelled correctly no less, but I'd never even signed up for the HOA. 2 days later, things got worse. I was feeding Ranger when I heard sirens in the distance. At first, I thought it was an ambulance passing through. But then they grew louder, closer, and before I knew it, a patrol car turned into my driveway. The officer stepped out, hand resting near his holster. "Sir, we got a report of unauthorized activity and possible animal neglect." I blinked. "What?" He glanced around. "Caller claimed you were housing livestock without permits and had an aggressive dog off leash." I looked down at Ranger, who was sitting obediently beside me, wagging his tail at the officer. "This the vicious beast?" The cop's lips twitched. He was trying not to laugh. "Mind if I take a look around?" "Be my guest," I said, stepping aside. He walked the property, took a few photos, then came back shaking his head. "Everything's clean here. Sorry about the trouble, sir. Happens more than you'd think." Before he left, I asked, "Can I ask who reported me?" He hesitated. "Ma'am named Kerren Hollings. Said she's the HOA vice president." Of course it was her. I thanked him, but my calm was fading fast. She hadn't just annoyed me now, she'd weaponized law enforcement because her ego couldn't accept being wrong. That wasn't just entitled, it was dangerous. That night, I sat on the porch, staring at the stars, my mind replaying every word of that first encounter. Then it hit me, Hollings. That last name. It rang a bell. The next morning, curiosity turned to disbelief. I logged into my old corporate account. Though I'd stepped down as CEO 6 months ago, I still sat on the parent company's board, the same company that oversaw regional management for dozens of real estate developments, including Maple Creek. And there it was in the employee directory. Kerren Hollings, Senior Property Compliance Manager. Oh, this was poetic. The same woman who called the cops on me for breaking HOA rules technically worked under my department's oversight. She wasn't just wrong, she was employed by the very corporation I helped build. The irony was almost too delicious to process. But I wasn't about to go nuclear right away. No, Kerren needed to dig her own grave first. So I waited. Over the next week she doubled down. More violation letters appeared. A drone buzzed over my property, hers no doubt. Then came a public Facebook post in the neighborhood group, calling me a disruptive and dangerous resident who refused to follow community standards. That was the moment I knew I wasn't just dealing with a petty neighbor. This was someone who thought authority was a weapon, and she just pointed it at the wrong man. I didn't get angry. I got strategic. I gathered screenshots of her posts, copies of her false violation letters, even the body cam footage from the officer's visit. He'd been kind enough to provide a report clearing me entirely. Kerren wanted a fight. Fine. But the next round wasn't going to happen in my driveway, it was going to happen in the boardroom. And I had front row seats to her downfall. The following week arrived wrapped in the calm before a storm. The air at the ranch was sharp with the smell of rain and pine, but beneath it ran a quiet tension I couldn't shake. Kerren's campaign hadn't slowed, she'd filed yet another complaint, this time claiming my barn was a hazardous, unapproved structure. She had no idea that while she was busy drafting false violation letters, I was already setting the stage for her undoing. That morning I called an old friend, Evan, the regional operations director at the parent company. He owed me a favor or two and I wasn't above cashing one in. I told him everything, the false reports, the police visit, the social media posts. At first he thought I was joking. When I sent him the evidence, there was a long silence on the line, followed by a low whistle. "You're telling me she called the cops on you, her boss's boss?" he said, incredulous. "This is going to be interesting." I didn't want revenge just for my own pride. I wanted accountability. People like Kerren got away with too much, abusing power because they thought nobody would challenge them. So I let Evan handle it from the corporate side while I focused on my own quiet preparation. 2 days later, the opportunity arrived wrapped in irony. The Maple Creek HOA board was hosting its monthly meeting, open to residents. The same Kerren who'd labeled me a nuisance was leading it in person. I showed up early, dressed casually, hat pulled low, trying not to draw attention. But the moment I walked in, she froze mid-sentence. Her smile tightened like a rubber band ready to snap. "Well," she said sharply, her voice echoing through the community hall, "I didn't realize this meeting was open to non-members." "Oh, it is," I replied calmly, taking a seat near the front. "Your HOA bylaws make it public for all adjacent property owners. I figured I should hear these rules firsthand since you've been sending me so many of them." A murmur rippled through the small crowd. A few people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. One man even whispered, "Isn't he the guy with the ranch?" Kerren's cheeks reddened. "Mr. Miller," she said tightly, "I don't appreciate your tone. You've been extremely uncooperative with the community. You've harassed board members, violated multiple." "Actually," I interrupted softly, "I'd like to see the authority that gives you jurisdiction over county land. Because last I checked, Maple Creek HOA doesn't extend past Lot 44. My property's Lot 58. County zoning confirms that." Someone in the back snorted a laugh. Kerren's composure cracked. "We have community standards that apply to visible properties," she snapped. "So, I'm being held accountable for existing within eyesight." I leaned back. "Fascinating." She floundered for a response, shuffling her papers, eyes darting to the board members for support. But before she could recover, the door opened, and in walked Evan. His company badge glinted under the fluorescent lights. Every head turned. Evan nodded toward me with a small smile, then addressed the room. "Good evening, everyone. I'm here representing corporate oversight for regional property management. We've recently received several complaints regarding misuse of authority within this HOA, and I wanted to address them in person." Kerren's face went pale. What do you mean misuse of authority?" Evan opened his folder and began reading. "Unauthorized enforcement actions. False violation notices issued to non-member properties. Misrepresentation of HOA jurisdiction. And notably harassment of a local property owner, including filing a false police report." The room fell dead silent. Kerren stammered, "That's ridiculous. Whoever reported that is lying." Evan's tone never wavered. "We have documentation, social media posts, and police reports confirming it." He looked up, eyes steady. "And just to clarify, the property owner you targeted isn't just any neighbor. He's a former CEO of this company, and still sits on the executive board. Her jaw fell open. She turned toward me slowly, realization dawning in her eyes like a sunrise she didn't want to see. You, she whispered, her voice breaking. You're? I met her gaze evenly. Your boss's boss. The room erupted in hushed murmurs. Someone actually clapped. I didn't look away as she deflated, her arrogance dissolving into panic. I didn't know, she stuttered. I was just enforcing the rules. Evan closed his folder. No, you were enforcing your ego. And that's going to cost you. Kerren looked around helplessly as if anyone would rescue her. The other board members shifted in their seats, avoiding her eyes. The silence that followed was heavy and humiliating. When she finally tried to speak again, her voice cracked. Please, I didn't mean to. Evan cut her off gently but firmly. Ms. Hollings, you'll receive a formal notice of termination within 24 hours. Your position with the company is revoked effective immediately. Her clipboard slipped from her trembling hands, clattering against the tile. The sound was final. I stood slowly adjusting my hat. For what it's worth, I said quietly, you could have just apologized. Could have asked instead of accused. But you chose to turn your power into a weapon. And power used that way always turns back on you. Her eyes welled up, but she didn't respond. She just stood there, small and trembling in front of the same audience she once commanded. I walked out into the warm evening air, the door swinging shut behind me. The sky was deep orange, clouds lit with the glow of the setting sun. Ranger was waiting in the truck, tail thumping against the seat. As I climbed in, a notification pinged on my phone, a message from Evan, all done. She's out. A week later, someone in the neighborhood group posted a meme. It was a photo of a white SUV with the caption, "When you call 911 on your boss's boss." It went viral in the local community page. The comments were brutal but honest, and for once the HOA meetings quieted down. Peace finally returned to the ranch. The hum of crickets, the gentle sway of pine, the easy rhythm of days uninterrupted. Ranger lay by my side as I watched the dusk roll in, the world around me calm and clean again. I took a sip of coffee and smiled to myself. Justice didn't always need fury, sometimes it just needed patience and the right timing. And to the camera, in a tone half serious, half amused, I'd say, remember this story next time someone tells you they're just following HOA rules. Because sometimes the person you're lecturing is the one who signs your paycheck. So, if you enjoyed that little dose of karma, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more true stories, and tell me in the comments, what's the craziest thing an HOA has ever done to you? The camera fades on the ranch as the last rays of sunlight dip behind the hills, the sound of a contented dog and the soft hum of a mower echoing faintly, signs of peace reclaimed.